Hi everyone, welcome back to the Mindfulness series. I'm Jenna Callahan from the Powassan Area Family Health Team. Now this video has a specific focus on motivation, and it will just provide some basic information on what motivation is and how practicing mindfulness can be beneficial for those who have trouble with motivation or lack thereof. So let's get right into it. So motivation really is the initiation, maintenance, and our goal-oriented behaviors. So what we would deem as the why of behavior. There are a lot of theories associated with motivation, like the self-determination theory. The one that I have here as a visualization is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And essentially, not to get too far into it, but his theory is that our needs start there at the bottom with our physiological needs. So food, water, sleep, those things. And then when we meet those needs, then we kind of go up the ladder or the pyramid as we see here, all the way up to the very top, which is self-actualization. So if we have all of our other needs met, we're feeling very confident in ourselves, we have love, safety, security, then we have the ability to be motivated towards our desires, and becoming the best that we can be. So that's just one example of a theory of motivation. Here are a few different types of motivation. We start at the beginning with intrinsic. So this is our internal motivation to do something. So doing things because they're personally rewarding. So just examples again, for me, it would be reading a book, eating my favorite meal, playing a sport, because it makes us feel happy. And that's intrinsic motivation, doing things because we get something out of it. Things that are intrinsically motivating are usually the things that we have control over, they challenge us, they bring us curiosity, and maybe a little bit of competition, depending on who you are as well. Extrinsic motivation is the type of motivation where we receive motivation from external sources. So an example would be working for money. We need money. That is a big extrinsic motivation to have a job, is to attain money. Others could be searching for praise, so doing things, hoping to get a pat on the back and get others praised by others. Another would be studying in hopes of having a better grade, in hopes of earning a diploma or a degree. Those extrinsic motivators are usually praise, money, fame, social factors, very much. We also have introjected. This is more of a regulation type, the thing that regulates our motivation. And this is that internalized voice and pressure that tells us to do something. So this is when we kind of get into that like kind of nasty sense of motivation. So introjected regulation is that little voice in the back of your head that says, well, you have to do that, or else you should be ashamed of yourself. So it's based usually in a lot of fear and is often related to our self-worth as well. And if you notice that negative self-talk often is something that is associated with yourself, then perhaps the self-esteem presentation that is also a part of the mindfulness series may be beneficial for you. So check that out. Identified regulation, so the thing that keeps us going with our motivation, this would be the one that's where we find personal value in completing the action. There's something that we get out of it. There's not a lot of pressure associated, nor does there have to be enjoyment in a task necessarily to be an identified regulator. For an example, we shower. I don't know if we enjoy every time we take a shower. Maybe we're running busy or running late. But we understand that It's something that's important and something that's a benefit to us. Same with brushing our teeth, going to the dentist, that we know that there's value in completing tasks like this. So, when it comes to issues of motivation, the biggest problem is the initiation of motivation and the persistence of continually having motivation after we have that initial phase. This has certain normalcies to it. It's really normal for motivation to fluctuate throughout our lives. And sometimes motivation is really hard to find. The tasks that we are trying to accomplish can be really daunting, and we can have doubt in ourselves. Or if we tend to be perfectionist type A people, we can be quite daunting in the task of, if I'm going to do this, I know I have to do this right, which really flows into the third thing here, which is being overextended. If we already feel crunched for time and energy, then being motivated to add something else on top of it, or to even complete the tasks that we know we have to do to any certain perfectionist degree, then it can be really difficult to do that. It can be much easier to just excuse ourselves and say, you know what, no. And another big part of this fluctuation of motivation could be related to mental health as well. Um, a characteristic of depression is having low motivation, um, and that's related to dopamine not necessarily being released into the reward system of our brains, um, and all that science. but but yes, having no motivation to do like those quite menial tasks is a big symptom of depression. And if you're experiencing those, then I do recommend speaking to someone about it, whether that's your doctor, counselor, someone that can potentially help you with those things. Mindfulness is defined as being present in the moment, being aware of our thoughts, feelings, sensations, the environment around us as well, paired with the acceptance of everything as it is. So, not trying to change anything. Um, the goal of mindfulness is to stabilize the mind, decrease overthinking, and to become fully absorbed in a state of concentration. Usually, techniques like visualizations, breathing, listening to external sounds, art, even, those are techniques to kind of present mindfulness and to have us be in the moment of being where we are right now. Mindfulness can also be really helpful in practicing our own awareness of what's going on in our own heads. So, increased awareness can assist us in identifying and understanding our thoughts that aren't particularly helpful or could be distressing as well. So, mindfulness and motivation actually have a really interesting relationship with one another. Um, Mindfulness can help motivation. Um, it can help us access that reward center of the brain and find that dopamine that we may be lacking. It can help us acknowledge when we complete something that we've been working towards. Another kind of practice that I often tell others about motivation is the 5 minute rule, where often, and again, this is for people that are experiencing quite low functioning, I always just tell them, try doing it for 5 minutes. 5 minutes where you can be fully present, putting effort towards this task, whatever the task may be. And then after that 5 minutes, if you're done, you're not interested anymore, at least you've completed something within that span of time. So that kind of 5 minute rule of mindfulness and task completion can help with motivation as well. The trick is that usually within that 5 minutes, the person becomes quite invested and they forget that the 5 minutes even exists. As well, there is literature out there that suggests that motivation and mindfulness aren't as beneficial towards each other. Obviously, if we're focused on being in the present moment, then how are we looking towards the future, right? Which is often what we need motivation for, is for future oriented tasks. Um, and as one study did show that people who were regular in practicing mindfulness were less inspired. So, where I kind of bring this back and make it sound like I'm not trying to preach mindfulness for motivation when it doesn't work. So, despite being less motivated, those who regularly meditated within these studies were still completing tasks equal to those who were not practicing mindfulness. So, it doesn't make us um, less good at completing tasks. What's interesting is the researchers suggested that having less stress, less sense of obligation or worry may be better associated with better task completion and concentration. So instead of constantly going towards the future, they were able to just sit down, complete the tasks as it needed to be done, and then move forward. Which really, this is kind of the question that I presented here, is that not a more realistic sense of task management, going from one task to another, and being able to not be stressed about it, have the worry associated, but still get it done to the same level of performance in general, without all of those kind of worries on our shoulders. So, just something that I found very interesting. And I wanted to also suggest that we can use mindfulness to try and find the motivation that works for us. Um, whether that's finding that intrinsic value in tasks that maybe we didn't necessarily have before. Mindfulness can be beneficial in that way. There is a guided meditation that comes along with this video, should be somewhere around here. Um, and it is to help with increasing motivation. I made it myself. It's a little bit less than 10 minutes, I believe. So give it a shot if motivation is an issue to you, and let us know if it works, or if you find it beneficial. Here are some resources. Of course, I will always recommend the Insight Timer, which is free, and Headspace and the Calm apps. You do have to pay for those, but if you're particularly invested, then by all means. You can also just simply YouTube meditation for motivation. That might be something that is helpful. Netflix has Headspace on it, which is pretty incredible and maybe a fun little beginner practice for mindfulness. And finally, here are some books that I found that could be beneficial to those who are trying to use mindfulness to increase motivation. They all kind of have different uh, purposes. So, for example, I have The Life Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo. This one is obviously in regards to cleaning and making change within the home setting. Um, so, that one, she uses mindfulness as a technique in helping those clean and have the motivation to get rid of things maybe they didn't need to keep. Another great book is Motivation, Boost Your Motivation with Powerful Mindfulness Techniques and Be Unstoppable by James Adler. And finally, Start Where You Are, a journal for self-exploration. This is a journal, so it's not so much of a book. It's beautifully done. I think Nirali Patel is actually a artist. And it's something to fill in as you go. Again, using mindfulness as a way of um, gathering motivation or making lifestyle changes that you've been wanting to do. So check those out. I hope that you find something of interest. And thank you so much for listening. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.